In this cupboard we used to have an hot water cylinder and a pump. They have now been removed and we are left with a cupboard with a few pipes in it and a bit of shelving. That is actually going to be removed. The two electrical points that are in here are also going to be removed because they're dead, and then we're going to put some shelving in here which will utilise this cupboard and make it a really useful space. So if you take a look, you can still see that we've got some pipes left in here. I'm going to go up in the loft and actually cut those out. We've got a bit of a shelf already. We'll probably take that out. A few pipes at the back there. A bit of damaged plaster down there. We're actually just going to cover that up rather than repair it. And then we're going to cover this surface up. I'll actually remove that board and cut out all these remaining pipes. So the first thing to do is to rip out the existing pipework. So I'm just going to nip up in the loft now and I'm going to start cutting out all of this pipework using a pipe slice. This piece of MDF is going to be the shelf support. So this will run all the way along the side of the airing cupboard and the shelf will sit on top of it. So I'm going to drill 3 holes in every piece. I've already marked where the holes are going to be drilled already. I'm actually going to take this outside because it's a nice day and I'm going to drill it outside. I've clamped 3 of the supports together and the one that's marked is on the top. I'm now going to drill through all 3 of those. It'll go completely through the top 2 and leave a mark on the last one, which I can then use as a template to drill the other pieces. So I'm now just going to drill straight through these. These are all firmly clamped together as one piece. I can now put the bottom one on top of 2 more pieces. Clamp them, and then I've got a mark for my next hole. So that's all 18 holes drilled in a matter of minutes. If you're using screws that aren't self-countersinking, you can also countersink the screw holes. We're using self-countersinking screws, so we don't need to bother countersinking the MDF. I've now marked a line all the way around the airing cupboard where the shelf needs to be. To do that, I have used a spirit level, which I have put on there, ensured that it's level, and then I have drawn a line across. Once you've done that on all 3 sides, it then gives you a position where you need to fix your batten to. I'm now going to get the batten, I'm going to place it directly underneath the line. And I'm going to take the drill and I'm going to spot through each hole. I'm now going to swap over to the correct drill bit for the plugs that we're using, and I'm going to just go through the holes we've already made. The plugs that I'm using are special plugs that will work on solid surfaces, they will also work on plasterboard. We can then put the batten in position, ensuring that the screws go into the plugs that we've just put into the wall. And then we can screw those home. You'll notice that these screws are self-countersinking, so they will countersink themselves into the MDF. That is now extremely solid, and that will be the support for our shelf. We're now going to repeat that for every other shelf that's in here, so we will be putting 6 of these in here in total. To make the rail older, I'm just going to cut a piece about 70mm long. So I'm going to cut that across there, and I'm going to measure 20mm in from each side. And then I'm going to cut the corners off at 45 degrees. Before you cut any MDF, even outside, you're going to need a dust mask, because MDF is actually a carcinogenic. You're also going to need a pair of safety glasses. That's the actual shape we're going to be cutting. We're going to cut that corner off, and then cut it down there. If you cut it down there first, it makes it extremely difficult cutting those 2 bits off with the chop saw. That's why we're going to cut that bit off, then that bit, and then cut it across there. I'm now going to use a piece of scrap copper pipe, and I'm going to cut that to the correct length, and we're going to actually use this as a rail. Over that kind of distance, 22mm copper pipe will be plenty strong enough to support a few children's clothes. So I'm now going to cut that using the pipe slice. I've now marked this piece where it needs drilling with a 22mm awl, and then we can get the 22mm pipe through that hole. I've now got a 22mm wood drill bit, and I'm now going to drill the hole straight through this piece of MDF. You can see that I've drilled that about 3/4 of the way in. I'm going to do that with the other 3 pieces, and then we have the 4 end pieces to hold the rails in position. I'm going to measure the centre now of the sheet. I'm going to divide that in half, and then I'm going to divide this in half again, and that will put the rail directly in this half of the actual shelf, and it'll be the same on the other side, so they will be equally spaced. So now when we position the rail on there, we know that that is in the exact half of this half of the sheet. That will enable you to hang up small children's garments side by side. I'm now just going to clamp that in position. So before we put these copper tubes in position, I'm going to take them out, and I'm going to give them a really good clean, and I'm going to paint them with some metal paint. I've now primed the rails and the rails are dry. We're now going to give it a top coat of Painter's Touch, and this is a nice blue colour. You can see that that piece of MDF was quite dirty. It was covered in MDF dust. It's important you get that off before you start painting, or else it will give you a bad finish. So I'm going to start by painting the edges. Now the Zinsser 123 Plus has dried, I'm going to give the shelves a coat of surface primer from Rust-Oleum. This is a white colour and I've just been giving this can a really good shake. Normally I'd spray this kind of thing outside, but unfortunately it's raining, so we're going to have to do it in the garage. I've left the door open on the garage, then the fumes don't get too bad. You can see when you're doing this that there is considerable overspray. Once you've given it a lick of paint and installed the shelves, you will end up with something like this. You can see that we've got two rails there for hanging clothes on, and then above that we have a couple more shelves for extra storage space. So that is a really good way of utilising the space in an old Irving cupboard.